Hey everybody, this is Rob Smith with the Body Project Studio. And today what I want to talk about is really what creates symptomologies. So I want you to think of any symptom you might currently be experiencing or any symptom you may have had. So I'm going to bring in the chart we use. In fact, when I created this holistic model, I had gone through so many physical challenges myself. And I had my problems were generally orthopedic in nature. So had multiple ankle surgeries, tore rotator cuff, tore my anterior cruciate ligament. So I've had tore ligaments in my wrist. So I've had a lot of orthopedic trauma, a lot of joint pain. And what was happening is I was going from doctor to doctor, therapist to therapist. And what you find in conventional or traditional medicine is a lot of isolation and compartmentalization. So what you're going to find is you have a symptomology, and the doctor will say, well, based on this symptom, now you can fit within this parameter. So now I can diagnose, well, now I can prescribe. And so that prescription might be a pharmaceutical drug. It could be, surgical intervention. It could be a cortisone shot. But typically what you'll find is it's all about symptom suppression. And so just because a person may get out of pain doesn't necessarily mean they're fixed. And so it's important for you to understand that if you don't address your body holistically, many symptoms are merely going to be suppressed. And what happens, particularly if a person's taking a pharmaceutical drug, is a lot of times you'll suppress that symptom, but another symptom will manifest down the road. Because what happens is your metabolic pathways start to become unbalanced. And remember, the body's always going to function best when it's in balance. Remember, the body operates best in homeostasis. And so when you have a symptom, what you have to ask yourself is this question, not what can I do to get rid of the symptom? The question you want to start asking yourself is what's causing the symptom? And that's really where the magic begins, because now we can really look at connecting the dots to ascertain what's really creating the dysfunction and ultimately the pain. Or think of any symptom. It could be a migraine headache. It could be digestive distress. It could be PMS. It could be inability to sleep, lethargy. It doesn't matter what symptom you're experiencing. There's a reason behind that. So you can do one of two things. You can suppress the symptom, or you can get to the root cause. And I just got tired of going from doctor to doctor, therapist to therapist, and not getting any better. Well, then when I got into the alternative world, there's still a lot of isolation and compartmentalization. There's many practitioners that are very good at certain components of what they do, but oftentimes they're focusing on just one element. And so that's really what motivated me to come up with this model. And so looking at our chart, if you look at the center being the symptom, any symptom you're experiencing, just remember. So today I had a couple of really interesting client visits. I had one gal that was experiencing very acute shoulder pain. So she was in a tremendous amount of pain when she came in. In fact, on a pain scale of 1 not being very painful and 10 being very painful, she said she was at about an 8. And so she had one surgery on her left shoulder, and that was the one that was bothering her the most. But she also had pain in her right shoulder. Well, it just so happened just before I got started, Paula had tested her. And so we wanted to determine what was stressing out her nervous system, because if you look at the chart now, if a person's experienced a symptom, it can be structural, right? So if you take a look at structural, that means that there could be some sort of joint problem. There could be a muscle problem. There could be a ligament problem. But there's all these other variables that actually can create the pain as well as just the structural component. It can be foods, Can be immune challenges like bacteria and viruses and parasites. Can be chemical, heavy metals, emotional stress, scars. So it could be scars, it could be tattoos, it could be a piercing. So any of those things can create electrical disturbance with the body, leading to the pain or the dysfunction. And so when Paula tested her, she was actually coming up with chemicals. And as we started to dig in, she determined it was from there's a chemical in a Roundup called glyphosate. And it's a very, very powerful neurotoxin. So it can create a number of health challenges. And so if you are not eating organic food, chances are pretty good that you're going to have this chemical residue on your fruits and vegetables. So it's very important that you use like a vegetable wash, or you use like an apple cider vinegar where you soak your fruits and vegetables in that apple cider vinegar or the vegetable wash, and then scrub your fruits and vegetables. Because if you have these residues, you're going to ingest those chemicals. And depending on a person's sensitivities, that could really set you into a tailspin. And with this particular individual, it was creating a lot of internal inflammation. And when we started to test her for various nutrients that would help detoxify that particular chemical, we came up with calcium lactate. Well, it's very interesting because she said, well, I'm already taking calcium. And here's where you have to have a really, really good understanding that people oftentimes will take a nutritional supplement based on literature they read, a recommendation from a friend or family member, or worse, a commercial, right? And so they have this false sense of security. They're taking, exactly what they need. Well, so this particular person, and there's many types of calcium. There's calcium carbonate. There's something called calcium citrate, calcium gluconate, calcium phosphate, calcium lactate. So if you're not taking the right type of calcium, you're not going to necessarily absorb it, or it's not necessarily going to function the way it's supposed to. Well, this lady was taking a calcium carbonate supplement. Now, most of the time, a calcium carbonate is an inferior calcium product. So let's say you're taking about 1,000 milligrams of calcium. The average person with a poor source of calcium, a calcium carbonate, will absorb only about 3 to 5%. So that means if you needed 1,000, you're really only absorbing about 30 to 50 milligrams. So A, it's not enough, and B, the quality is so poor. And then C, you might not even be taking the right type of nutrient. So that could be magnesium, it could be calcium, it could be sodium, it could be potassium. You have to be very careful in the supplements that you're choosing, because number one, we have to start to understand that this is a very competitive industry, and there's a lot of marketing hype around garbage. And if we look at things like Centrum and One A Day, it's pure garbage. You just cannot utilize and synthesize these nutrients, and you're just excreting it. And so not only are you not absorbing it, but you're stressing out your body. Your body's just not going to be able to absorb these nutrients. So one of the most important things you can understand is the difference between really a cookie cutter program and then a customization or customized program for you and what your individual needs are. And so what we did is, after we tested her, we gave her a couple of the supplements, the number she tested for. I think she tested for 6. Anyway, so she took the supplements, and then I went to work on her trigger point. So remember, a trigger point is a muscle that's gummed up, balled up, it's tight. So this would represent a healthy muscle, and this is like a trigger point, so that it's just gummed up, it's balled up, it's tight tissue, it's toxic tissue. And so as I started to release these muscles, it started to free up her shoulder. And it was amazing because in less than an hour, she went from 8 on a pain scale down to 1. Now, do we typically see an 8 to a 1? I mean, that is a big jump. And it was amazing. I said, well, are you sure you were at 8? Yes, yes. Well, the one thing about it is just positioning her arm for me to work on it. We had to move it very gingerly because she was in a lot of pain. So she said, yeah, I was at an 8. And when she left, she was at about a 1. So, the first thing we did is we evaluated what was the stressor on her nervous system. So there was a structural component. So I had to do some work. But B, she had to have some nutritive support, because we had to give her a nutrient that would help detoxify that chemical out of her body. And so many times, if we look at the chart again, many times there is not just one component involved in a symptom. So for her, it was structural, but it was also chemicals. And now another thing, what we'll find with people is foods. Foods are such a big one, because if you think about sugar, if you think about wheat, if you think about dairy and soy and nuts, these are the foods most people have intolerance to at the highest level. And what happens is when people are ingesting foods that they're intolerant to, it creates inflammation in their bodies. And so that shoulder pain that might normally be a 3 or 4 can spike all the way up to an 8. So understand this, whatever symptom that you experience currently or you have experienced, there's generally more than one variable. So remember this, anytime you have a symptom, don't ask the question, what can I do to get rid of the symptom? Because you could take an anti-inflammatory, you could get a massage, you could take an aspirin, you could, get a chiropractic adjustment. There's lots of things you can do to get out of pain, but are you fixing the underlying problem? And so that's where it takes a holistic approach, where you have to have all the muscles functioning optimally. You have to be structurally balanced. You have to make sure your chemistry is balanced. And in the end, remember this, the body is always going to function best when it's in harmony or when it's in balance. So hopefully you pick something up in this video. If you learned something in this video, please like the video. And there's certainly a friend or family member that you might be able to share this video with that could maybe connect a dot or two, have an aha moment, and maybe turn their health challenge around because of this type of information. So we got to make sure we spread the word to people that it's imperative that you don't isolate and compartmentalize any symptom that you're experiencing. You address the body holistically. And so keep that in mind. And until I see you tomorrow, go out and make it a great day. You certainly deserve it. And until I see you, be well.